Jazzcast Pros.
Did you know that in the United States of America, there are over 1 million individuals that suffer from Parkinson's disease? Worldwide, there are over 10 million. Join us today as we hear from our next guest, who shares the 5 stages of Parkinson's and the incredible journey of being a caregiver to his dying mother. Welcome to Fearless Fridays with Maryann, the podcast to help you get unstuck, heal your inner child, and reshape your future. I am your host, Maryann Rivera-Dannert, and with over 10 years of experience as a coach, author, speaker, and owner of MRD Empowerment Solutions, I use my personal life experience with trauma, healing, and rediscovery as a catalyst for personal growth. My mission is to empower you to discover and unlock your full potential, paving the way to a life marked by freedom and balance. Together, we'll tackle the tough stuff and find the strength within to rise above. So let's get started. Tell us your name and a little bit about yourself.
Thanks. Everyone jokes I'm not like Madonna, but I like to say I'm Sharon's son, George, because that's what this is all about. But my name's Dr. George Ackerman. I'm currently in Florida, originally from New York, Brooklyn. And I have really dedicated my whole life to the world of advocacy. I first started as a child growing up in Brooklyn, New York. I guess that's why I kind of fell into the world of fighting for victims of crime. As you probably are aware in the movies with Pacino and De Niro, unfortunately, New York isn't the safest place. Even today, it's worse, I think. But anyway, I always had a passion to help others and didn't know how to do it. So I kind of went right into becoming an attorney in Washington and Florida, and I did a lot of criminal law and civil, but I really liked working in the prosecutor's office during an internship. But I found that you just don't have the time like I wanted to help victims because there's so many cases. You have to, you got to go to the next one. So I didn't like that in a way. I decided what better way to really get hands-on experience and to then, after becoming a lawyer, becoming a police officer, which was really odd because most people don't go back the other way. So it was really, but I wanted to get right hand in and help victims. I found, unfortunately, yet again, that you just have so many calls. You can hand a brochure, but you got to move on. So I really found a few areas I love, but thankfully I was able to finally find my purpose, and not just Friday, but every day. It's really important that I help others. And I did my PhD and dissertation on aiding African American mothers who lost their loved ones due to murder in West Palm Beach, Florida. So I really, my whole life before caregiving has been advocacy. I was brought up, and I don't think I would be the man I am today if it wasn't for my mother's sacrifices. So, to give to others and to be a voice for those who may not be able to. And that really brought me, and unfortunately, again, I hate saying that word, but it's a lot of unfortunate things, but it's leading to positive today. But my mother sadly passed on 1/1/2020 due to Parkinson's disease, and she had it for about 15 years, but only the last 4 it kind of accelerated, and that's when I became her caregiver, and then she passed, and then after that, a lot of people, I don't blame them, they may move on, and they have to go back to life, but I decided I don't want my mother to be forgotten because I feel that Parkinson stole 15 years while she was alive and 15 years after because she was very healthy and young, and 69 is no time to, pass due to any disease in my view. So today I fight in my mother's memory, but all those battling Parkinson's and their caregivers. And, we have a lot of work to do because there's no cure currently in 2024.
Yeah, so that's why you and I connected, was because of your passion, with advocating and speaking about Parkinson's disease. So very sorry, that happened to, your mom. So talk to us a little bit about some of the signs that she was experiencing, some of the research that has been going on. And I think you had mentioned through our email exchange that it actually attacks more women.
Yeah, first I want to go back and thank you and your audience for the opportunity today. It means a lot to me. This is not just about a talk about, Parkinson's. I feel this is a conversation that has to continue until we find a cure. And really, I always believe if we just reach, one person, we've changed the world for the better. I love your show, the name, and your shirt, because I do believe if someone can't be fearless, you need to be an advocate and be fearless for them. So that's why I really appreciate all you do, too. So I want to thank you. My mother, there are 5 stages, which a lot of people we have a beginning, middle, and end of life, and people don't want to talk about the end of life, even though it may help a lot in the future, because if you have proper planning and you have things, you actually avoid major issues with family fights and, will, power of attorney. There's a lot of things that really need to be discussed. I like to talk about anything, and that's where the fearless, I guess, comes, as others might not. But Parkinson's has 5 stages, they believe. The first few, I won't get in depth, obviously, because we don't have the time, but first few stages, a person might see motor symptoms. So Parkinson's is one of the toughest things to even say, is it's the fastest growing neurological disease in the world. And not just in the U.S. We have approximately 1 million people in the U.S. with Parkinson's, but 10 million around the world, which was really shocking when I even found out. All the problem is just awareness. People aren't aware until either they have it, a neighbor, or a friend, but now it's growing. So it seems, I don't know if it's growing because of some of my work or just because of the disease. But when I started Advocacy and togethervisharon.com, which was created in memory of my mother, I thought 3 or 4 people would see it. We've had over 35,000 visits. I don't know why.
Wow.
So kind of makes me happy but sad at the same time, because I'd rather we have 4 people, because I don't want anyone else to go through what my mother and I did. And that's really why I fight today for others fearlessly. But as you mentioned, some of the symptoms can be movement. It's a movement disorder. So I always give an example. Imagine there's a door, or even imagine I'm trying to reach to touch you at the screen, or maybe press end or mute. Well, my mind is saying to do the action, but my body won't be able to at point. So
Mm.
really a movement disorder. Also, sometimes there's problems in the beginning with posture and balance, difficulty walking. But in the first few stages, again, you're still able to live an independent life. My mother lived her whole life. She was divorced, but she actually studied psychology, had a master's, and was a school teacher. She sacrificed everything, gave it up to raise me and my brother. And that's kind of, the fearless selfishness, that, she brought me up to with. And that's what I try to instill today, even in my children. But stage 3 is where it gets tougher. That's where the individual might lose balance. Something called bradykinesia, which is the slowness of movement. So now you're not just freezing, but also slower in the movement. And this is where it starts to get tough to eat, bathe, and even dress alone. Now you need to start thinking about caregiving, caretakers.
Mhm.
Stage 4, which is like where my mother was the last 4 years, and then 5 is the toughest, because then you can't really independently live. It's almost impossible to eat, bathe, dress, sleep, or even walk at times. And then finally, the stage 5, which was really tough, because doctors, and we've been to 15, even today, they say you don't die of Parkinson's, you die with it. But my mother was only 69, had no other medical issues ever. So that's the last stage, and that's where you actually have delusions and hallucinations, where actually are more scary sometimes than the movement, because the movement you can still reduce symptoms now, we believe. So you can't cure Parkinson's, but we can reduce the progression due to health, like eating and diet, and also exercise is very important, even 30 minutes a day. Some say 45, but that's not even just for person with Parkinson's. That's really for anyone, even the caregiver. And I can't tell you because we don't have the time, but her stomach was really destroyed. A lot of the medicines, they might slow the movement, but they speed up other things. When my mother passed, we had about 4 huge contractor garbage bags of medicine that I had to dispose
Wow.
of. And that can't be healthy for anyone.
Yeah, definitely. If I remember correctly, you don't accept donations directly. You send everything over to the Michael J. Fox Foundation. So for individuals that might be listening, and if they have a loved one or they themselves are struggling with some symptoms, have been diagnosed, what is it that causes, like what happens in the body, if you're able to answer, that causes someone to pass away sooner than someone else? Because, for example, Michael J. Fox has had it for years and he's still here, but your mom, unfortunately, lost her battle. So is there something that like affects the body differently, neurologically?
I think it definitely depends, and there's no cure again because everyone's so different. So
Right.
Michael J. Fox is a hero of mine. He really could have led a private life. He had some. And I actually want to get back. You mentioned women; they're just starting now. I don't know why all of a sudden, but to really concentrate more on women and Parkinson's, because there's a misconception that it's an elderly man disease, which isn't true. You actually got a great example with Mr. Fox, who I had the opportunity to meet a few times now. He's not doing well, though. I saw him on TV a few nights ago, and then a month ago I was with him. I actually put video up on at the Unity Walk. Once a year there's a Unity Walk, and we actually flew into town, and it's once a year by Michael J. Fox Foundation. It's beautiful because it's in New York City in Central Park, and it's really a life-changing experience where people walk for those we've lost and for those battling in the family. So he's raised over $2 billion, not million, $2 billion for the research. But I'm always honest, even though it's heartbreaking. When I first time I met him was like 6 months ago, and it was so fast that my life flashed by. When you get that moment, and part of me was in heaven because it's beautiful, but then the other part, I saw my mother in him. He wasn't doing well, and now just a few weeks ago, he won a big award, and he had to come out in a wheelchair. So he did have it in his 30s. It's called young onset Parkinson's. So Parkinson's, I always say, it doesn't discriminate. It can affect someone at different ages, races, gender. And like I mentioned earlier, the scariest thing is I wasn't even aware there were 10 million people around the world. So I decided on togetherforsharon.com it's not just about my mother and me anymore 2 years ago. It's about everyone because I believe we're a family in this. And I interviewed 600 people around the world, from Africa to India to Spain, England, France, Nova Scotia, even Iceland, and they're all for free on the website. We're not a foundation on purpose. I don't really want to deal with the money, and that's not what this is for me. It actually helps a lot, but you'd be shocked. I would need another 10 hours to talk, but even after 4 years of advocating, the other night I had an odd experience, and so I always try and come up with ideas because a lot of the organizations are great, but I don't know how much the regular guy or gal gets from the big money, the donations from the big organizations. So I always think, how can we help directly? Like literally, how can I put somebody who's had a career like a lawyer, but now because of Parkinson's, they can't be a lawyer anymore. So maybe they became an artist. If I had a good idea and it worked out beautiful, I just decided, why don't I post something on Facebook or, social media and say, if you're an artist, I'll put your artwork, like one artwork, your website and your description of the art on our site, completely free, and then people can literally directly just go to their site and buy it, and I have nothing to do with any. I just I believe, like the conduit, just to get the awareness. I actually had 10, 20 people respond. It's up there now. It's called People with Parkinson's Around the World. It's beautiful. And I had one wacky person say that, they don't want it was like a group, one of those Facebook groups, which I'm staying away from now on, but they thought we were trying to do some scam, and it's just, the saddest thing about helping people, I'm sure is everyone thinks you have to have some kind of like Shark Tank moment but wait, there's more. Like, I'll put this, but you have to pay. We don't do any of that. We don't accept money. If someone sends me a penny, I send it back. But we do have a donation section, and the beautiful thing on it is all those organizations like Michael J. Fox were amazing enough. They created a page for their own organization or foundation, and it's in memory of my mother. So if you go to our page, donate, it'll go in memory of my mother, but it doesn't come to us. And it's sad that I have to explain this, but I'm going to start doing it more. I even added a section to About Me to explain, we're not a company. We don't want anything. I just am shocked at 2024 that you still have to be fearless, but explain yourself. And that some people would and I'm actually, we released the book a few weeks ago, which I'm excited, but I already have 2 more coming, and I didn't want to write any books at all. The first one is about my mother's journey. Second one is actually following up to that. And I don't want to say too much because it's kind of exciting, but it's about, I don't have Parkinson's and I'm no longer a caregiver with someone alive with Parkinson's, but there's millions of people like me who lost a loved one due to Parkinson's. And a lot of the time we are forgotten, and it's sad. So I wanted to write a book on that. But in the book literally has some of the dark side of social media, because as you know, even though you can have like 99.9 incredible human beings. Like I met you. I'm so honored that you took the time today, and I consider you family now. Because this is not just a regular topic. We're about police. This is about, people's lives. So, you have that section, and then you always have the one person for some reason. I put Michael J. Fox's speech up from the Unity Walk on YouTube, and I got some wacky people writing about how looks like Joe Biden or something, like there's no people there and they don't realize.
Oh my gosh.
I try to video things early when no one's there on purpose, because then I can get the real feel. So just because someone's not in the audience doesn't mean it's just the things that we see in
Yeah.
society. The nice thing again with Parkinson's disease is it's bipartisan. We're not, there's no fight. We all want to cure. I just am shocked still today that some people, obviously it happens in the police field, but I didn't expect it 4 years later in the Parkinson's world. And the saddest thing, to move on, is that one person, so an administrator wrote on a thing saying, we can't have soliciting. I don't know. We're not soliciting. So anyway, I removed myself. I banned the person or whatever they banned. So there were only like 300 people in the group, but it's so sad because the 270 who I could have helped will never know that we exist, and will never know, the world won't know that they're out there. And that's really my goal by doing all this is, again, number one, I don't want anything except people to know they're not alone. Number two, just, it's nice to help people, but there are a lot of people, and you might agree, that they go through some wacky person. They decide, you know what, I'm not getting paid. I don't need the grief or the stress. Why even bother? But I'm the opposite. I keep fighting, and until we find a cure, I will keep fighting. You can't let one person or even 100 people affect the 10 million that you're trying to help.
Is Parkinson's, can it be passed down, or is it just individual?
Another amazing question. The great thing is I always say now, you can see the book. I'm just kidding. But it actually, in the book, it's important because I never have the time to go through everything I want, but I cover the first signs of Parkinson's, the symptoms and associated illnesses, my caregiving, my support. If it wasn't for my wife and children, I wouldn't even make it today speaking to you. Also finding good aids, caregiving, the final week, which is a chapter I say sometimes you might have to skip because it's tough. But then also there was a chapter I loved that my family and my mother's friends wrote about my mother. And then the mission forward and how grateful I am to even individuals like you who I just met. But important is they don't believe it's hereditary or genetic. So we don't know yet. But they do think, and I agree, it's the environment. So we have, we don't know what's in our water. We don't know what pesticides they're putting on our fruits and vegetables at the supermarket. I won't name specific names. I think personally it's the environment. My mother lived in a nice home her whole life, but she had termites, she had mold, like most houses do, and so who knows what they sprayed. But like I said, she had no other medical issues, and she was only 69. We went to 15 doctors, different ones, experts, and I'm not a doctor or medical. I recommend to speak to a neurologist who's a motor specialist. That's the movement, not motor, and movement and motor. So the fourth year when I first had to take over, because before that she was able to survive at least and live alone. She was able to drive, to shop, and see her friends. But she went for a specialist trial study for Parkinson's, and although I'm for trials, I don't know what they did, and I think they might have drastically changed her medicine. So she came home that night. This is the shocking first time I ever saw anything like this, but I got a call to rush over to her home at 4 a.m., and I found her in the street, and she was moving her furniture out of her house, and she said she's in fear that Nazis were inside and they were going to harm her. So that's where you see the stage 5 delusions and hallucination. But as a caregiver or just a human being, like, I was in shock because I've never dealt with that from a loved one I have in the law enforcement world. But it's different, because you go in, you help, and you're out. But this is like, your own family. So I rushed to the hospital. They said we saved her life, but that was kind of the stepping stone where it just kind of declined. She went from 4 years of, 4 years, she would walk at 4 miles a week, very healthy, to those 4 years, she went 2 years to a cane, then to the wheelchair, then a walker, then wheelchair, and then bedbound for 7 days. So something that is very hard to even still talk about. I mean, I'm still grieving even 4 years later because my mother was my best friend. I mean, I always say I should get that shirt. I'm proud to be mama's boy. Because we spoke 10 times a day, and now, like, that was the hardest event. Not even that she passed, but that there's not that amazing, inspiring person there who I called for the good, the bad, and the ugly for advice. It's still, some days I think I'm going to give her a call. And, in holidays like Mother's Day just passed, which are the toughest.
Yeah. So that leads me to, to another question. You dedicated the last 4 years, to taking care of her, and you saw everything that she went through. You mentioned the various, shift in your careers. You are married, you have children. How has her loss impacted you? And how are you? I know that you wrote the book, and we'll talk about that shortly, but how has the grieving process been? Have you sought counseling? How is that going?
Yeah, I tried all that, but luckily, again, I didn't feel comfortable because it was more like, it's a stranger. It works for some people, but I felt like I was just talking to myself in a way. So I was lucky that my wife is really, in a way, my psychologist, and my children, they're always there. Even some of these, like when we get to it, this was actually one of my favorite pictures I ever had in my life. It's my wedding with my mother and the son, and my wedding, but my mother and I had the son, uh, mother son dance, and those
Yeah.
3 minutes, Parkinson's disease didn't exist. It was like just those minutes and moments we can never forget, and I have them on video, thankfully. But we just danced, we laughed, we talked, and it was just an incredible time. But the book is important because it really gets into the little tiny, minute areas that I wouldn't have the time. If you wouldn't mind, I actually have a little section about caregiving, a sentence I can read. This is
Definitely. Yeah, definitely share about it.
one chapter I won't get to today, though. Is I actually kept a journal the last year because I didn't know how to function. Like I was going through, I'd say hell. Like if there's a hell, we were told she wasn't going to pass. We didn't know how to help. We tried everything. Like, I mean, if you name chiropractor, she also had fibromyalgia, which was back pain, but we tried like 15 doctors, specialists. One time I pulled the doctor in a room, not going to beat him up, just to say, look, is my mother going to live? And he couldn't, like, no one could answer. But I mean, this is a chapter on just caregiving, but this area heading is called My Extreme Stress. It all came with a steep cost, though. I put mom first, giving up any of my regular own life to ensure that hers would be as safe and steady as I could make it. As a result, my time with my wife and children was sporadic. Something told me, too, that we didn't have a lot of time, so we needed to find a way to save mom before it was too late. Or I thought I could always get back to my own needs once I solved her medical needs. Now looking back, I'm sure this curtailment contributed to my troubles with my own health and lack of mental stability. And that's, just a little bit because it was not easy. I mean, I felt grief, felt anger, frustration. It wasn't my mother, it was at the disease. And I'm the kind of person that puts a list together and checks each one off, as you do it. But I couldn't find that one, word or way to solve this besides the cure. Unfortunately, it didn't happen for us. But now I fight for everyone else who is battling it. And it's sad. Like, I don't want to keep bringing it up, but it just happened recently. I'll probably talk more about it. But, why is it in 2024 you can't help people, without a motive? And it's sad because there are people out there who are doing horrible things like ID theft and going after elderly, and they kind of spoil it. But people have to always have an open mind. Don't give people money, obviously, and don't give me any, please. But to not be able to, put your heart out there and help people is a shame because people, again, need it. And when I'm at live events, it's amazing because a lot of stuff, like, is virtual now, even after COVID. But being there live, we'll have like a table, which we donate, money. And we'll have a table. We're in the middle of two giant pharmaceutical companies selling stuff. So sometimes they'll actually come up to us and run away because they think we're smart. But then when they see a big picture of my mother and me and they come over, they hug, we cry together, and they just appreciate that someone is out there fighting for them, and that's all I want. I don't want anything else. So it's, again, I'll say it 100 times on the next show I'm on, but it's sad that you can't just help people and just get only positive comments.
Right. So you wrote the book and you're working on a couple others. What was the passion behind writing the book? Because I know you go on podcasts, everything that you're doing, the advocating, and also share, what are you working on for the rest of the year and what's next for you?
I appreciate it. And again, hopefully everyone out there listening, please support Maryann and the show. It's very important. She's doing some incredible things, and we'll be sharing it around the world. But the book meant the world. I think this book will be something that goes down in my life as my most proud moments because it's going to, I think, keep my mother's memory alive forever. I mean, I was on Instagram the other day, and my wife was yelling at me to get off it because I'm on a lot because I really want to help people. And I always say the only journey that breaks my heart is the one that I'm not aware of. So there's still people out there that I'm not aware of, and I'd love to them to reach out, but it's not always easy because I'm just one person, one voice,
Right.
one son who lost his mother. And I was shocked when I did the research before writing the book that there's not one other son who lost the mother to Parkinson's or that has ever written the book on it. It's like the only one in the world. Like literally, if anyone out there wants to doubt it, please let me know. For
Yeah.
right, because I wouldn't have done it probably. But so that was important to get her journey out, and that's dedicated in her memory. But to those battling, because there's a lot of important tips in there and things that people aren't aware of, even going through the fight. Also, it's for people for any disease, not just for Parkinson, because it talks about caregiving, has tips again to plan again before all this chaos comes, and it's very important. The next book was something that meant a lot to me. Again, I haven't talked about much. I just finished it. I have a lot of editing. It won't come out for a year. I don't want to be like a serial author. It'll probably just be one a year. But the next one, I'm really excited because I think it might change the world, and it's actually going to be on policing in Parkinson's. I taught at the police academy in Florida, and I'm a police officer reserve. But in at least in my state, in the actual academy manual, it says things like dementia and Alzheimer's, but leaves out Parkinson's. So my dream would be that I work with the Michael J. Fox Foundation to bring legislation to every single police department and academy throughout the United States to add the word, like literally that's all I wanted, to add the word Parkinson's. So police training are more aware because, again, Parkinson's is an involuntary type disorder with bodily movement. If an officer approaches somebody in a car late at night and they're uncontrollably shaking, they could look like they're drugged or drinking DUI, but they're not, and that can end very bad. Let's say they say, put your hands up, and the person looks like they're reaching for that. I don't want this to happen, and I know it might not have yet, but it's very possible. So I think just putting literal word in the guide. So I actually interviewed someone, academy from every single state in the United States, and I also interviewed many officers and also people with Parkinson's on their experiences with police, whether it's good, bad, or neutral, because it's good to hear good stories and neutral. Right. And so that's a big one I think will change the world. And also another follow-up to the journey, but this one will be dedicated to all the families and in memory of those we've lost due to Parkinson, because in my view, and this will be more controversial, but I don't think there's enough for people who've lost a loved one due to the disease. I think a lot of the people don't want to hear about it. Every time I hear, the people with Parkinson's or anyone in the community say, you don't die of Parkinson's, you die with it. I don't know if that could be medically proven because, like I said, in my scenario, my mother, we were told she wouldn't pass, and she had no other medical condition at all. So those are important to me. And then I thought about the other day making like a book. This probably wouldn't be about Parkinson, but like more fiction where it's aliens, zombies, and I need to, do something. But I might put a character in it with Parkinson's. I think there's a lot to be
I love
done.
that.
And I'm not like, I don't love writing. I just think some of this is needed. And even yesterday, I did my own show. We have a podcast too. I don't know why, but it's really just interviewing people with Parkinson's and in the Parkinson's community. But it was the first time I interviewed an attorney who has Parkinson's. It was a beautiful story because she's fighting for disability and things, and she has Parkinson's. I don't see, and I'm an attorney, so we had a great conversation. But while I was talking to her, I thought we need a book on, the law on Parkinson's. So now I have, and I'm going to wait for that one. But the more awareness we have, and it's very hard because as an independent publisher, it's not easy to get the word out. So I really count on everyone I meet, like, your audience to support us. And I don't really get anything from the book except that, people are aware. So
definitely. So you are on the Fearless Friday podcast. How are you living a fearless life?
I appreciate it. I just want to thank you for your time and your audience. I think being fearless is very important. You have to stand up when you think something's wrong, whether it's in your own life or society, and fight for others. Be the voice of the voiceless, and that's what I live by. But I always say, we love you, we support you, we care a lot about you, and you're never alone. I will advocate for you, and together our voices are so much stronger. And I'm just getting started, because even though I've been doing this for some time, there's that person out there that I don't know about. And when I see, you and your show and your audience, or somebody fighting Parkinson's or any disease, kind of re-inspires me to know that it's not over yet till we find a cure. And even later today, I'm interviewing a couple, which is going to be, I hope I don't cry, but it's actual first time I've ever been able to reach them because they're pretty busy. But it's a younger couple. They both have Parkinson's, and they actually both had it's called deep brain stimulation,
Oh, wow.
which is like, it's brain surgery, and they both had it together. And they're young. And
Wow.
it's just a beautiful story. And I think that
Yes.
their story and even my book should someday be a movie. I don't know how to do that,
Yeah.
but these are journeys, and it's people's lives. And I think the only way to end this disease is to have everybody out there on board, and through media, through celebrity, through anyone, athletes, anyone we can. But if we don't work together, like that one negative thing I had, we need to rid the world of that. We all need to be together. And I know people, unfortunately, have had some weird moments with maybe some criminals, but that's nothing to do. You should never judge somebody that you meet based on your last experiences. So that's really the last word is, you're not alone in this fight out there, and feel free to reach out to me. And we send our love, and we won't accept anything in return, but to know that you're not alone. So thank you.
I love that. Thank you so much. And where can individuals connect with you and learn more about you and support and purchase a copy of the book?
I appreciate it. That's a shameless plug time. This is the book. It's actually on Amazon. We even have an ebook. It's not my voice. We got a professional gentleman. It sounds like a movie trailer, which is pretty nice. But it's if you go to togetherforsharon.com, click About Us is where you can click book, and that everything's right there. But also you can see the free, the interview 600 for free. You can see the podcast. I interviewed United States Senator the other day for there's something which we didn't have time, but it's called the National Plan to End Parkinson. It's the first bill in U.S. history passed last December through the House of Representatives. It was completely unanimous. It was incredible. Like I said, it's bipartisan. So whether you're a Republican, Democrat, Independent, or nothing, it has nothing to do with politics. We just need the legislature to. So now I have both of our senators on board in Florida, but hopefully you and your states and all your listeners can call and email and reach out to your senator and urge them to support the National Plan to End Parkinson's. It's spearheaded by the Michael J. Fox Foundation, but it's literally history. It'll be the first time, and you can all be a part of it. It doesn't cost anything. It might take 3 minutes of your time, but if we have this, it's going to head to the Senate, I hope this year and next. If it's passed, it'll be the first United States legislature ever to help people with Parkinson's and their families. So it's really an incredible moment. I hope it can't help me and my family, but it will help so many more.
I love that. Thank you so much for being with us today, George.
I appreciate it, and please keep in touch.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. If you enjoyed the conversation, be sure to leave a 5-star review and share with a friend or two. If you're not already following us on social media, come join the Fearless community at MRD Empowerment Solutions on Facebook or Instagram, or visit our website, MaryannRivera-Dannert.com. I'll catch you next week with a new episode, and remember that you are a priority and you matter.